Welcome to episode 20 of Zero Basis Points. This is what we're calling the impossible episode because it took us so long to put one out, obviously for good reason. But I'm joined here with George Guidotti. George, how have you been?
Amazing. Great to be this truly impossible episode. I mean, this thing's been scheduled a number of times and the impossible is happening now. So,
Yeah, I feel it. I mean, I don't even want to go through my calendar to see how many times we moved this thing. We did a couple of trips to New York during that time, came back, tried to figure it out during the same week, had client meetings. But I hope our listeners understand, our millions of listeners, that when you're running a startup plus the podcast, sometimes push comes to shove on the schedule and certain things take priority. But we
yeah,
love
and
you
but you know
all.
what though? We care about the podcast so much that we're not going to put out episodes for volume. Like we're
Yeah.
not just going to but like there's stuff that we want to say and it's always at the right time. No, we got too much going on. We can't commit enough time to make it good and just if it doesn't feel like we can bring passion to the podcast, I tend to push it off. Like so,
Yeah.
but
Take the blame, George. No, I'm just
yeah,
kidding.
I'll take the blame. You know, I want to be passionate even today. It's a beautiful day outside. Man, every excuse to not do this episode. But I'm all about, and especially the last couple months, taking things that are impossible and manifesting and materializing the impossible. So here we are.
Yeah. Speaking of, we always put so much weight on ourselves to do so much. And I'm going to use that segue because I think the folks have not had a good update on the fitness route that George is on, which I'm very proud of. So,
Well,
George,
by the
I'm just
time
give
this,
you
yeah,
the floor.
I'll take it. By the time this episode comes out, one thing I'm excited about? I think they figured out the Strait of Hormuz. I think we've got that. So today, upon recording, Trump just has to sign the deal and then everything's going to be cool. So let's see what happens. I got a feeling that we might still be on the fence, but otherwise, dude, gas coming, dude, everything's going to be good again.
I know that's
I'm
been
excited.
leaning on you heavy. So,
We joke about this Strait of Hormuz talk. I can't even believe the words are coming out of my
it's
mouth.
gone back and forth so much that
Yeah, it's a joke. It's a
yeah,
joke,
yeah,
and so is the price of gas.
yeah.
But what's not a joke are my weights, my numbers. But I have been like sending you videos of my form because my goal is to put up 2 plates on both sides, 225 pounds just once. And even yesterday, and my thing is I need a spotter. I can't do that weight alone, but I've done 225 alone, 205 alone. Just a 45 plate on both sides, then the 35, beasted it right up. But I've tried, and I don't warm up enough for 2 plates for the 225. But I sent you a video where I was just holding it up, like I can just get it up and hold it, but I didn't have a spotter, so again didn't do it. But I think I'm about there. But I have been working out great, especially the upper body, chest, back, tries, buys, shoulders. I love all that. Squats, not squats like you. Like I'm not like
Hey,
holding
you
the
don't need
bar.
to.
I'm holding a dumbbell. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
yeah,
Goblet squats. Yeah.
yeah. But I do that kind of stuff. So I'm in good shape. My only problem, and I like to say it, I'd like to be really transparent, is like my sugar. With the kids, the
Yeah.
stuff.
Diet's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was little, I was lucky if we had raisins and like sunflower seeds, like that. You could make some trail mix if you were lucky. Otherwise you had Cheerios. Maybe like a brown apple or a smushed banana. But my kids get this like they got these options that like yeah, we all knew those kids as like I'm like these are my kids. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just, and it's hard to resist. Like I'm so good all day. And then, you know what? Like your discipline on your diet wanes. I haven't done like the scientific study as the day goes on. Like in the morning, you're like, no way will I touch a donut. And then like later at night, yeah, let me take one of
It's because of the energy drain. If like by 2, 3, you slowly are, that's when you start snacking the most, right? It's like you're tired, you're
yeah,
hungry. Sometimes you might be like dehydrated, and that fools you thinking you're hungry as well. So like that's why you have
yeah,
to keep drinking water sometimes. And it's funny because one, props to you because 225 is no matter how much Instagram and social media like downplays oh, 225 is like nothing, 315 is the new 225, et cetera, the new two plates. It's still a big number. And like I said, the percentage of 225 at your weight especially puts you at like an advanced lifter status for the bench at least, right? And it's one of those lifts that I think when you look at it from a percentage standpoint, 3% of the population, like there's numbers that are around, who knows what the real one is, like 3% of the population can do it. And then when they go into like gym goers, there's, their own numbers versus the entire world, etc. But it's a very difficult weight to bench press. And then that's when you start seeing the form really come into play. Like if you are not good at benching, you're just using pure grit, you're not really using form, etc. You're going to injure yourself at 225 in those weights as well because your, tendons aren't ready for it, etc. But I think you did the static hold. That's why those static holds, when you just hold it out in front of you, help so much.
Yeah.
It
And I
physically,
started low with that, like,
yeah.
a little bit extra low, so I got some of that push in there, but, yeah, I don't want something to snap in that
No,
bar
no,
to
no, you gotta hold it out, and not only is it physically kind of, promising when you can hold out the weight because your body's feeling, when we talk about feeling the weight, your body's actually feeling holding that weight out, but you visually and mentally and psychologically are also preparing for it too, because I cannot tell you how many times when people are trying to do a new 1 rep max, they will be ready from a physical standpoint, but once that weight goes down, psychologically, they'll think about something else, or they start doubting themselves, and then that it gets stuck. It's so
it's so
weird.
fast, like, "I don't have it."
Exactly, and it literally it can come off the chest, and it's happened to me too many times, like, you just don't feel confident at a certain point. Once it's down here, instead of pushing it, you think a little too much, and then you lose kind of the flow, so you lose the lift, so it's kinda stuck, and then, you gotta kinda have a spot there for those numbers for sure, but it happens very often. It's so crazy at that level how the psychological, mental, and the physical all kind of need to play their role perfectly. That chain reaction needs to happen perfectly for any of those big lifts. That's why even Olympic lifting, etc., is such a mental. The psyche is so important. It's such a mental part of the sport. Whether you go up on stage, obviously, I'm listening to music. I'm kind of like using certain cues to do stuff, but you can't have music up on stage on the Olympic stage.
Yeah.
Crowd has to quiet down and you got to just focus and then do it. Honestly, when you're able to push that type of weight, that's when you see how all of it works together. The bodies, the anatomy, the psyche, the mental part of it, all of it's just
And even, like,
blasting
the
off.
form, like, when you told me to, like, put my blades almost closer in the back, I felt that give me more stability underneath, which planted my feet, which I finally, like, had a hard time figuring out how to plant the feet right, so I wasn't wiggling around like
Yeah.
Gumby. But, yeah. You know what? It's amazing to build the muscle mass. I feel stronger, but you've talked to me about it before, but this guy I really like, Nick O'Neill on X.
Yeah.
Like, he's been an incredible crypto personality. He's a developer, like,
Yeah.
unreal guy, but he has cancer and build a token and the communities he's using the fees to, like, help fund his he's done well for himself, but cancer will just, like, destroy your savings, obviously.
Yeah.
But he was saying that from some of the money that he raised, he bought weights because for what he's going through, which is some sort of lymphoma. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but lifting weights improved his chances of survival by 65%. It's something I'm remembering off the top of my head. So people, if you know like true statistics, and I'm saying something wrong, like forgive me, but the the things that you and I talk about is just how important muscle mass is to your health. Because
Of
as you get
course.
older, you deteriorate,
Yeah.
and your chances of survival and your probabilities of survival go up with more muscle mass if it's the right kind of muscle mass. I guess
Yeah. And I think one of
getting
the
a little
things
bit out of
that
my element here, but it was something that we talked about that I thought was real because I saw him say that, and I'm like, "That's what Hike said." He,
Yeah,
like,
I said
the
this before. I've said it multiple times, obviously in different like forums and just for people who ask. But back in the day, cardio was such a popular thing, right? Like cardio itself, oh, you can run a marathon, like you must be healthy. And I think what people realized over time is that weirdly enough, a lot of folks who were running marathons had cardiac arrest, cardiac disease. They still had some of those things happen. Some of them were having fatty liver. And I've heard cases, I'm on, Instagram X, it's people talking about their situation. Reddit, where someone has had fatty liver because they ran marathons. They were lean enough. They assumed they could eat fatty foods. And, hey, as long as I'm not getting fat, that means I'm fine. But realistically, what it led to was them having, arteries clogged and things
Yeah,
like that.
quack and yeah.
Exactly. So there's your body's gonna fall trap into some of these things, if especially if you're not taking care of it. But I said the new metric that's gonna come out that's gonna determine health. We talked about the grip strength the last time, which obviously requires muscle, but it's gonna be muscle mass. And I think you have to take that with a grain of salt because you can't be blasting steroids and being, you know, so muscular, like abusing some of this stuff and then being like, oh, I'm healthy. Obviously, there's going to be side effects to that. But I think from a natural composition standpoint, someone building their body up and having the most amount of muscle that their genetic allowances, they're going to be in a very good state going into any type of, God forbid, cancer, disease, sickness, etc. Some of the things obviously you can't defeat, but it's going to increase your chances of survival when you're
Right.
going through treatment.
Right, yeah, so it's not just to say that just you can't just inject yourself, get pumped up, and then have muscle and survive cancer. It's
Yeah,
everything else doesn't evolve with that process, so
correct.
you naturally evolve with the weights over time,
Yeah,
and
and although and one of the things that you have to avoid, although I have heard that in the past, obviously this isn't medical advice, but I have heard in the past folks who do use the steroids to try to kind of
well, actually, yeah,
maintain.
they are good in a lot of yeah,
Yeah, they're trying to maintain or at least build some of the muscle going into some of those treatments and try to, the withering away, try to fight and withstand it. But and one of the things that I've come across a lot just having been in the gym is there's folks who will use younger folks now because of Instagram. I think we talked about social media just being so wrong. Right now, peptides are so popular, right? And peptides are the serms and all these things that are out there. And a lot of people are going to get into it fairly quickly, especially with Hims and all these companies out there that are going to start peddling some of it online. But one thing you have to keep in mind, and there was this really cool chart on X, which I don't repost any of the fitness stuff to our network and our listeners, but you could probably go find it. And it says how your different tissues under load and stress react. Muscles are some of the quickest, right? Muscles actually, the more load and progressive overload you do, you become stronger quicker. The ones that take the longest are actually your tendons. So a lot of these athletes right now, a lot of the people, hobbyists who are working out, start getting ruptured tendons on their chest, trying to bench press a lot of weight. They're starting to rupture quad tendons, trying to do squats. And the reason for it is because their muscle can handle the weight because they're using anabolic steroids. So they feel like, hey, I could just put this weight up. But guess what? Your tendon hasn't had enough time to get used to that load. And so it hasn't thickened, it hasn't been used to that type of weight. And suddenly you lift up 4 plates, 5 plates, whatever it is. And, at the
nah,
top, it snaps, it rips.
yeah.
I had a guy the other day at the gym. This was a month ago at this point, busted both his triceps doing a shoulder press down at the bottom of the lift. One at like 100%, the second one at 75%. And I wasn't there to see it. I heard after there was a loud snapping noise. There was,
Oh my god,
all this
yeah.
stuff, which drives me nuts because I do lift those stuff. So I can't ever imagine that happening. But, that's a long recovery road now, surgical or non surgical route, whatever you do. But he's going to definitely be pumping peptides. BPC 157 is the popular one for that, if anyone's asking. So,
Peptides are so big, but, former hippie, but spent a lot of time watching seminars by Robert Anton Wilson, which is where I learned about peptides.
yeah,
So if you Googled Robert Anton Wilson peptides, he talks about how I mean, this is probably in the 60s or probably 70s, maybe even 80s. I don't know,
been
whatever.
around for a while for sure.
But yeah, he's talking about just doing what you love is like how you generate peptides. Like
Yeah, some of
even
it's naturally occurring
right.
for sure.
Right.
Some of it's
No,
out.
yeah, and I'm sure, like, even with hormones and I haven't even done the research yet on peptides. I mean, if it would give me more energy, I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty energized,
Regrow our hair back.
Yeah, get, like, a big mop on my head,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll take that, So if it does that, then, yeah, let's try it out. We can, show it on the podcast.
We can start doing a peptide channel just for the podcast.
But what we do makes, I wonder how you can measure your peptides, but even as hard as we work to that point, I'm very happy doing what we do. We work all day, we work really hard. Um, and even on the podcast, take it very seriously. Something didn't want to forget. Speaking of the podcast and the fellow podcast universe, dude, our recent trip to New York,
Yeah,
right? You and I had an incredible day of meetings, and then we're taking like the longest walk around the city
that was
from,
wild. Yeah.
from Wall Street to the like through Soho, up through what,
We
all
basically
the way
ended
up.
up in Midtown. Yeah, we went all
I
the way
ended up
through.
with that. But yeah, so back at the hotel, sitting at the Four Seasons in the lobby, and then I talked about the All In podcast. David Freeberg
Yeah,
walks up the steps, and we're sitting there, and this is when um I was in town, but the Knicks were playing Philadelphia too.
that's true.
Of course, the Philadelphia lost it. So I think that's maybe there was a lot of celebrities in town for that, but it was really cool. We were just sitting there. We never even told the story to anybody, but sitting there and David Friedberg, if you we don't have his face to pull up. Nobody probably knows who he is, but
No, I'm sure our listeners
Stanford
have
guy,
heard of the All In
but
podcast.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, fellow podcaster, but give us a strong look. What's up, David? Like he knew he should come over and say hello, but like couldn't figure out
I
why.
think he was
So
trying to put two in. He's like, these guys
yeah,
look familiar, but I don't know. Maybe he
yeah, I tried to
watches
give
it.
him
Who
this
knows?
nod. Like, go ahead,
I'm
go.
kidding.
Like, Haik and I are talking about something. Like, but yeah, that was really cool. So I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, that was an awesome story
Yeah.
and a good
Abs-
experience. But a
Right.
beautiful hotel, by the way. The lobby is
The
wild.
best.
And you were the one who always used to talk about it. I guess it just reopened while we were, or recently.
Yeah, yeah. Like I guess about like a year or two ago, which was
Yeah.
amazing. It's the second tallest hotel in Manhattan. It used to be the tallest, but it is by far. What was the show? We were watching that one little clip about dining, and it was the guy polishing the silverware like yesterday.
Oh, the bear, the bear.
Yeah. Right. The reason I love the Four Seasons is because, and if you want to even think about being the best advisor or a bank, you walk into a bank and it's all sloppy. Like this place should be impeccable. I don't want to see a piece of paper. I don't want to see how everybody's smiling. But when you're at the Four Seasons, and it's probably a lot for you, that's like you're at the Win or Encore. But like they are they know your name when you walk out of the elevator. They know what you might need. If you ask them for something, they hustle. If you wanted to call them, let them know that you need to book a room and I want to have dinner. I'm going to need a car. Like you can just tell them everything. It's all taken care of.
That's awesome.
That actually, like, I used to think I wanted to get into like hotels and things like that. And I was like, oh, Starwood, this amazing brand. But really, I just like staying at the Four Seasons.
Yeah, I mean, it is great. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely will make it a staple once we're in town every time in the city just to check it
Yeah.
out. I mean, it's
Yeah, it
amazing.
would yeah, it's awesome, it's beautiful, but yeah, so to loving what we do, love the podcast, the work's been great too.
I mean, speaking of work, I mean, there's a lot that's happened, at least on our plate for
Yeah,
everything we're doing. You're running point a lot for our clients with the digital associates and things like that. So I think it's exciting for folks to hear kind of a check-in, right? It's been a while. One of the things that I wanted to call out was the direction and velocity of AI, right? When people were still figuring out all this stuff, it was, hey, this chat, etc. And then it started to the agentic stuff. And now really you're boiling down to folks trying to do orchestration. And a lot of what a lot of the conversations around that. So many models that we see that people are implementing that exist out of the box, etc. But there's a lot that we're discovering and kind of on the frontier side, we're building for ourselves because we don't even find it suffices sometimes some of these out of the box protocols and things like that. So when we're talking about things like I guess a couple months ago, MCP, Model Context Protocol. Everyone was kind of catching up, and you had Zox put out an MCP recently. A lot of these firms are going to start doing that. But then we are working with folks who are looking at agent to agent protocols. And then we even one up them. Not that it was a competition, but we one up them into the hey, if we're going to talk about agent to agent, why don't we go into agent to UI protocol as well? And it was like, all right, what are you going to use that for? Well, if I'm gonna be asking questions, I'm not gonna go back and say, I need these three fields and each of them are gonna be a separate question I need to ask. Why don't I just create a UI that's easily and entry is easy for the user, and they can see what they've done instead of all these multiple steps where they kind of lose sight of what the process looks like. So there's
Right.
so much around that that's going on and people are catching up on, but would love to see kind of one hear your take.
I would say barely catching up on that. Even Jason Wank, who we all know in Altruist, and I follow his stuff. I love what he's doing, but like he made a comment that nobody's really messing around with A2A. And I was thinking, we're doing A2A and A2UI. I almost wanted to say it, but I figured I'd save it for the podcast.
Yeah, of
Well,
course.
but to be on that cutting edge, and when I hear everybody talking, nobody's talking about it, you know. And then
Yeah.
when we're working on implementations, we know we're all learning these concepts together. But we continue to be at the tip of the spear. We're executing in A2A.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
one thing you need to keep in mind for all the listeners, so the way that the agent to agent protocol works itself is you essentially are building agents on your side where they have certain tasks that they can do. And you're sharing those tasks with another agent from outside. So what happens is a lot of times an agent that's not in your system can leverage your agent in your system to do a task that their agent card describes. So it could say, "Hey, I'm moving money. Hey, I'm opening accounts," etc. So they can actually tap that agent and then recruit it for a certain workflow. And it could be part of a workflow, it could be the entirety of the workflow. So that's how it works. That's where I think it gets really interesting. This protocol, the A2A protocol, a popular ones, Google has one. But like I said, when we're exploring and being at the frontier of a lot of the solutions that people want and larger companies and enterprises are looking at, stuff out of the box doesn't always suffice for their use cases. So we've built a lot of the functionality in-house as well to be able to maintain it and do kind of spin-offs of certain agent to agent, agent to UI protocols that look really good for the financial and wealth management space that otherwise are too general out of the box. So there's a lot of that to keep in mind. And I think that then leads is a great segue into like what is orchestration and how does orchestration really work? One of our larger clients that we're working with obviously got into that conversation fairly quickly because they started expanding with so many agents themselves that it made sense to now orchestrate internally. So whether you have internal users who are asking for things to be done in the systems and you need to recruit certain agents, the orchestration works for that. But that also helps in going outside for third party agents as well and recruiting them for certain things that need to be done. And one thing that I think the world will catch up on that they haven't yet is dual layer orchestration and decision making. That's going to be one thing where a lot of the larger firms in house are going to have their own orchestration layers that then is going to talk to a different orchestration layer outside for whatever purpose that then will recruit their own agents. That dual layer doesn't really exist today. We've implemented a couple, but we haven't seen others doing it. That's going to be something that the world will catch on pretty quickly because you'll realize that a lot of the intent management, the functionality, all that really comes to fruition with this decision layer, the dual decision layer that you're building out with these orchestrations. If you just have one, you're kind of running with one arm tied behind your back trying to figure out what to do. With two, I don't want to say with three, like something like that, that it makes it more powerful, but marginally changes the accuracy, the workforce when you have two. We haven't
Right.
got anything above that yet. I'm not sure if we will need to, but that's something that you should keep in mind. I don't think enough people are talking about it just because they're not crossing that problem yet.
Right. And even if you think about it the way that you talk about it, if we think about traditional integration, let's say I'm passing data that I've consumed from a custodian into my CRM and I'm passing it into eMoney Advisor, is how we would think of a traditional integration, which is old.
Yeah.
A2A would be recruiting the agents in one orchestration system, ARCA, recruiting the agents from those systems. Can't do it with eMoney, but let's say I like picking on eMoney, but just because they're local Philly guys. But if I wanted to do it with Conquest, our agent could recruit Conquest agent for that
Yeah.
part, execute that part, and serve it up.
Yeah.
So that's what A2A is, working in MCP protocol with A2A protocol, right? So It's instead of integrating into that app with, different front end experiences, it will be orchestration of agents in one system. And even still, people talk about orchestration and companies will have their own orchestration. What we do at Arca, but our platform is the only one that I've seen, and I see agents working because I have to deal with them every day. But a platform that allows you to, and I say it so much, stand up. We call it a map, a multi agent platform. It does a lot of things. But I always say we cut our teeth in workflows because we allow you to stand up, deploy, and micromanage agents. And if the agents are hitting walls, they create tickets for themselves that humans unblock. When you put an agent to work, it's just like putting a human work or raising a child. Look, go get that from over there. And when you get that from over there, take the things and put them over there with the other things. And then when you're finished, put it all back over here. That's where we're also experts, where you really started with Blackmar work and the Adapar is extracting using CoreScript to extract data from documents to bring them into that workflow so the agent can get to work. If it's not good at that part, then it sucks. And even as standardized and clean as everybody's saying that data has to be, well, CoreScript, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like that's where the domain expertise of your agents and our really, I'd say, primary component, what we call the seeing eye of Arca, not trying to do a commercial, but the true differentiator is that it can interpret a batch or a document, one or many documents and interpret what it needs to, however it might be on that document. So getting the agents to work friendly with Arca agents is the future of agentic workflows in wealth management.
Yeah. It's a big statement,
Right.
but I completely agree. I mean, it's really when we're, Jason Wang talks about this. We almost have whiplash. I feel like from so much AI stuff going on to now, like, and we knew this was going to happen. You're going to go from all the hype to actually what's real, and we talk about this, a lot. We've talked about it before on the podcast, like what is actually real. A lot of places, a lot of firms who will say they're doing this type of stuff. One, were not, or they were using kind of solutions to gap that issue that weren't agentic at all, that weren't actually leveraging AI. And I think it's slowly catching up to the market. We're slowly seeing that a lot of people from back in the day in 2025, not too far away, whoever deployed AI this year and the following years, they're going to start reaping the benefits of it because they got in early, and it's never too late to get in. That's the thing. It just has to be, there's so much more noise to cut through now than there was in 2025. But now it's going to kind of fizzle out because so many people are jumping on, realizing what actually works, what doesn't. Is it even worth kind of going down that route? And then you're slowly starting to build a tech stack and start leveraging certain things that work out, dropping the stuff that doesn't. And I think we're lucky enough to be with clients and partners who are tech forward and are open to hearing our solutions and how we think about stuff. One thing early on we did was because we wanted a solution so quickly, we decided that, hey, we're going to build this stuff that's going to mimic a lot of the functionality of a person and an agent. And then you realize over time you could actually do it better with the agent without having to follow the workflow. You just need to know the deliverables that the agent needs to hit. So that's where the real challenge is going to come in. How do you take something that a person is doing today? How do you add an agent to do it without making the mistakes, kind of the issues, inaccuracies, etc., that the human is having to do, the repeated work? So you have to focus on what the human's deliverables are, have the agent provide those same deliverables, but in the best way possible, in a better way. You don't want to just repeat the task. So that's where I think the conversation needs to be had, both internally and externally, where we challenge our clients to think around how do we want to do this together in the best way possible that still gets you what you need, but may look different in the process versus a human who was doing it, right?
Right.
And that's a big conversation piece. I mean, we talk to all the other folks who are, have their own tech teams, and they're like, well, you have to go here and do this and then do that and then go into this page. And I'm like, that's not what the agent's going to do. The agent isn't going to do the same process the human just did. You got to reimagine that process. It's
Right.
just going to hit those same deliverables at the end. It's going to look like a human did it, just better, faster, and more accurate.
Yeah, doesn't need the user experience. One thing I want you to say about orchestration that I think is so important. You kind of described the scenario where we're working with a partner where an ARC agent is talking to the partner agent because they have their domain expertise, we have ours. For me, what I love about Arca, and when I give my Arca demos, I'm the best ever. Um, but I like to show kind of how we evolved into being able to extract data to send it into performance systems as transactions. I'm always blown away by that, but how that evolved into kind of helping an agent understand where to start. Start here with this, go to this place and extract these documents with these instructions around this group of documents. But how we do that all is with multiple agents inside of Arca. And typically those workflows are running on a schedule. So if I want workflows to run on a schedule, we have agents running on a schedule inside of Arca. Then we get into orchestration inside of Arca. I think of that as unscheduled work. And you and I haven't really talked about that. But if I want to go to the Arca orchestrator and say, can you get this signed from DocuSign? Like we have an agent that knows how to do that. I want to open up an account at this custodian. We have an agent that knows how to do that. It might take two agents that are orchestrating. So there's that orchestration within Arca where we have agents that have learned so well how to extract the right data, do the right thing with it, so that when you're getting into orchestration, it's the agents are so fine-tuned, like employees that know exactly what to do in different departments and work together instantly. So
Yeah.
they can work in an internal system, but the agents can also go A2A outside of the system. So it's important that they can do it inside of Arca and then outside of Arca with external systems.
Yeah. And I think one thing you have to take into account is large enterprises are going to have their own orchestration. They're going to have their own orchestrator.
Right.
How powerful that is and everything is going to be determined based on what they do, how they're building it, etc. But I'm a big proponent of these large enterprises and large partners and clients of ours to have their own orchestrator layer internally because it's a key to unlocking a lot of the functionality both in their own tech as well as outside tech in the future and being future proof. Now, a lot of other firms might not have that, right? And that's where we can come in and say, hey, we have our own, and then you can kind of use that. But we're working across very different tech stacks. We're working across different variations of capabilities from the tech side for our clients and partners. But orchestration is literally just like you described. It's not, I wouldn't say it's unscheduled work per se, but the orchestrator itself is a recruiter almost of understanding what the intent is that you want to do and then understanding what the agents are capable of and which ones they should utilize to optimize the workflow to be done as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible. So when you're looking at something as simple as like, hey, I want to open, or let's just talk about end-to-end client onboarding, right? What it will do is it'll say, well, here's I need to go ahead and build out this client because I'm receiving the paperwork for it. It'll take the name, et cetera, all the pertinent information that you require to open an account, create the client and open an account. Then it would say, do I have a transfer form in here to actually initiate a transfer? The transfer form might be missing. It might not even be a part of that process. So it's not going to call on the agent that does the transfers to be a part of this onboarding. It'll say, I don't need you yet. And then it'll kind of go through the steps still. But if you had a beneficiary update form for the registration type you're doing, then it could call on the agent that says, hey, I need you to actually add these beneficiaries on this new account and new client I just created. And that's what that'll do. So and then the point would be that once you're doing that within Arca's walls, right? Then if you were to say, hey, I'm sending this information out to the custodian, well, guess what? It's going to work with the custodian's agents as well at that point to basically say, hey, here's all the stuff I'm sending your way. Here's all the validated data you need, which decreases NIGO immensely, and then says, push this to your system. And then they pick it up and do it on their side with their agents if they have internal ones, or our agent interfaces directly with their APIs and endpoints. So it just determines what systems you're working with. But that's what an orchestrator is. Imagine you're just a manager, supervisor walking into an office and saying, I need this done. I know you can do this best. I know you can do that best. You guys come here. I'm going to give you this task. You guys are going to be at the tail end of this workflow. And then, come back to me once you've done it all. And then they all just work in parallel.
Yeah. Kind of the new API,
Yeah.
it's what do
And
you
then
need?
layers to all of this, just some inside baseball around like those A2A protocols that we're custom developing on our side or kind of beefing up is things like parallel execution. So in that same example, if I'm the supervisor walking into an office and picking folks to do it, I don't have to wait and say, well, once you're done, then I'll give you this new task to do. I'm like, do these 5 things at once. Then it's going to go to this guy and they're going to do this one and it's going to go to this girl and they're going to do the rest, etc. But I can leverage and do parallel execution. So some of these end-to-end client onboardings might need the transfer agent, might not. So you're still recruiting all of them to come in based on the batches you're working with or the tasks you're doing. You're just not having to wait in the queue to be like, I'm going to do this one, then this one, then this one. You're saying multiple things are being asked of you. You report to me as you do each of these steps so I know where you stand and I can then, do a handshake of data to the other agent, etc. And then this all gets done much quicker. There's things like that that just don't exist out of the box that we're building internally here at Arca that I think almost is a superpower for some of these agents.
But at least I'd say we're at the point now where we have a small army of like, if we needed to show up and say, okay, we think we know about 80% of what needs to be done here.
Yeah.
I've got a crew that can do most of it, which is why we can deploy so quickly with such that domain expertise, which I would say I think obviously I think I have the best domain expertise in the wealth management space from a technology implementation space. But what a differentiator it is for us to be able to understand and like really just be able to unpeel like a day in the life of what an advisor or a broker dealer home office, or those a large RIA is dealing with. So it's just being able to help them go through this because we're all going through it together. You know, we're on the tip of the spear together, which is awesome. Oh,
Yeah. And I
more to
think
be.
one of the things we don't shy away from is like talking about, look, UI is going to still be a big component, right? Like we see a lot of stuff on LinkedIn and whatnot of like headless, CRMs and things like that. There's going to be so much in the UI space that's still going to be required. I don't imagine an advisory, an RIA, broker dealer ever kind of getting away from some of those offerings because as humans, we still want to see a status of an agent of what it's doing. I'm not just going to turn my head away and be like, all right, everything's done at 100%. Yes, that may be true, but you still, as a human, are wanting to see some of that. And as an advisor, you're so used to dashboards and reports and all these things that there's going to be so much of that still to do. But I feel like as in the wealth management space, at least, we're kind of we're rubbing elbows with that kind of thought process, right? Like, all
Right.
right, I'm going to be okay with some of these things working 24/7 like our clients are, but then I want to see certain status of things happening. And the higher the complexity of some of these, I want to see more steps. I want to see that's why we have notes, both internal and external, that the agent delivers to some of these folks. So it's saying, hey, I'm going to give the home office some of the internal notes of what I did and where it failed, and this thing wasn't ready. So whoever's picking it up can come in and be like, oh, I know what the issue is. Here's that form that they, left out. Here's data that was not correctly inputted. So they can go fix that. And then the agent can run off and do that process, continue the rest. And even external notes of like, hey, here's an issue that they're going to present to a financial professional as well from an home office perspective. So there's so much that gets done on our side, so much that we're seeing that I feel like although we're going fast, we have to still do things around like the wealth and entity relationship manager. People love seeing that flow and
And
that
dude,
ownership.
I love that you just went there. The wealth and
Yeah.
entity relationship manager, because that's what CRM has evolved to for me all these years. But when you think about it in so much as the creative mesh between applications, we're moving data, boom, 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 getting it into the right place. But often the data has to stop. And you want to call it a worm, want to call it a CRM. I call it a staging environment sometimes,
Yeah.
you know, just because it's like, okay, the data's here before it moves. I want to check it all out. Sure, you want to call it a staging environment because it's about to move. Right now, it's not, but you can click play and it starts moving again. So I think that staging environment will always be so critical for compliance advisors who just like to tinker. I mean,
Yeah.
look, see, are those the right beneficiaries? Yeah, I made that household yesterday. I just want to look at it again. And so it's nice to have that environment. It's not the centerpiece of the user experience. I don't think it'll last there forever, which is like I'm a CRM guy and here I am admitting it. But as a staging environment, it will be critical because even in certain workflows, transitions as an example, if you're coming, Reg SP, we'd have to bring data into a staging environment before, the receiving entity could see it,
Yeah,
you know.
and one thing I said before, and that's why I kind of feel strongly about it, just given our experience, and it's more of a theme that I'm seeing reoccur as we do more of this, is when our first workflow, our first agent mimicked the process of a human, right? Every step, because the human told us that's how it should be. The person who's doing the work told us the agent should do this. So it was almost a one-to-one repeat of what is happening for this human. The agent's just coming in and stepping in and doing it. What we realized as a part of this is that the agent can do it better. And we don't have to follow step by step everything the human needs to do it. We got to just focus on the deliverables, making sure that we can replicate doing all the deliverables, but the process might look different and it might look new and it might look scary, but it's better. So in the wealth management space, when we tend to do CRM, for an example, CRM existed mostly for sales. It wasn't really built for wealth management, for the longevity of the client relationship that really comes in. You have others that are coming out and saying like Slate, et cetera, who are focused on CRM for the wealth management space, but they're building CRM like they've seen CRM and then saying, here's a couple more information, key points, et cetera, that matter for the wealth management space. But what I like about us stepping back and thinking like, we gotta look at stuff as it happens in a better way for a better outcome. So the deliverable might be that staging environment, right? Because that's what CRM provides you. But how does it happen in the background to receive this information, consume it, put it together, etc.? That might not be the CRM flow that everyone knows of. Here's the client entry. Oh, add a field and do this. Maybe it's here's a bunch of documents of information I have on clients. Here's a bunch of Excels that I exported. Build what my data model needs to look like.
Boom, you just said it, dude. Because if
Yeah.
it's the CRM, you're locked into that data model and then you're expanding from there instead of taking all the requirements of the industry and saying, now we've iterated on every one of your requirements. Now here's the staging environment.
Yeah, and what's the benefit of the staging environment really comes into like the actual stage that you are of your business. As you mentioned, if you're doing a transition, you're going to require the staging environment to have all the data you just brought over. There's a process that needs to take place, which is going to be agents being leveraged to do the document signing, the document filling, go to DocuSign, come back, etc. Is this approved? Move it all over to, the home office and the people who can now see it, the new entity, etc. But what if you are then after transition, you're like, I really like what this looks like. And now I want to run my business off this staging environment and come in and check the household, check the values, check, certain notes that are being brought in from a AI note taker
Like a
for it
launch
as
pad
well.
dashboard. Yeah.
Exactly. The dashboard. Yeah. The launch pad. Those are the types of things that happen when you kind of leave the old way behind and you're like, I want to do it the new way. And that's why I said it's scary. If you show people the launch pad, they're like, this is cool, they don't have something to compare it to yet. It's a dashboard. Well, realistically, it's your control panel. It's not a dashboard. It's your control panel where you're going to use this to work. I understand you're going to want to dig into some stuff that you want to see, and that's going to be expanding this part of it and the worm and going into household, etc. But over time, you're going to build so much trust around the data that's there and however many times they check it and it's right, etc., that they're going to use the launchpad to literally be their control panel for anything they want to do, not even second guessing it. And that's why with I always go back to, and a lot of people will say like, hey, there's a better way to do this. Why did you guys decide to do it with the paperwork or kind of go off this stuff? And going back to core script is like, that's what our industry's used to. the path of least resistance to get someone to use newer tech was to kind of replicate what they're doing first, make it so easy that it's like, oh, I already have this data. I'm just going to give it to you and you run off with it, to then slowly evolving into, do I really need this paper anymore? Or do you have the access to the data that you need that I just used to fill out this paper? So just grab that instead. To then saying, hey, if I need my client to approve something, can you do a digital consent? Can you just send an email to say, hey, I'm going to, transfer this money over. Are you good? And they click to consent and it comes back and it says the client approved. Here's all the audit for that and verification that they were the ones signed in with their IP, etc. Go ahead and initiate the transfer. Done. So that's where we're going to go. And I think that when we talk about that, that's super scary for a lot of folks because they're used to the process and the way it is. But using the process and doing it better today is then going to unlock the path for tomorrow, the leveling up that's going to be required. So
Right.
I'll get off my soapbox.
No, I love I mean, I talk to firms all day that this is exactly what we're talking about, is how earlier had a call today, big RIA, assets at, I'll just say one of them, Fidelity, NFS, and they lots of components to their tech stack. One of them's Redtail. They thought they were going to use Redbox, Wealthbox, whatever. But the point is when I show these, so we always talk about cutting our teeth really on workflows. We can read documents, we can automate workflows, we can do all that. We're connecting applications so that Arca can do that, right? So the largest enterprise just care that they're working close to 100%, if not at 100%. The rest of the industry that logs in and say everything's connected, you've got this incredible dashboard that the enterprise isn't as interested in as much as they are that the operation is running very efficiently with like major efficiencies that are,
Yeah.
impacting the organization. But the advisors, in the demo that I gave today, what I was just kind of showing the way that the dashboard would work is you're going to spend from 9 to 12 preparing for meetings, sending a couple follow-up emails to clients. And so instead of doing that from 9 to 12, do it from 9 to 9:05. Do it from 7 to 7:05. It was like this. We just move it because it's all there and you don't have to wait. Like the agents are there that know how to do it. The integrations are already in place because you've connected the systems. You might not even need an agent to do the work. So it's just a push integration. And it's exactly what the advisor is looking for. You're finished. All of a sudden, you were going to do that until noon, and now you're finished. You can fill that time is yours. You have it back.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. And now you can choose to do something cooler with that time.
Yeah.
So
Grow your business, focus on the client service side, um,
go
all of that.
golfing. Yeah.
Go golfing. Yeah.
Not that I golf, but I think a lot of advisors like to golf. I mean,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know it's one thing that I'm behind on.
no, but you know what? And the only other thing I'll say is because we brought up the staging environment, Reg SP, the transitions, is one thing that we're doing is there are, and the example that I gave, the guy logged the example that I gave is you logged in upcoming appointment today, generate an agenda based on, Redtail CRM notes, and it does that. There are some systems that's all they do. So that is a component of a workflow that Arca does. Like it's a little piece that an agent does. I say I understand more about transitions than anybody in this industry. In fact, I rolled up an RIA to WEG. My brother's still there. I was filling out the spreadsheet with them because we had to export it from the CRM that I managed. So I would love to go up against anybody who thinks they know the process more, but we've built a workflow that will displace anybody who's doing transitions. You can do it quickly. Everything that the advisors were complaining about has been resolved as much as it could possibly be resolved. And it's a big pain, like get that spreadsheet, get it on the forms and get them signed. The biggest rub is asking the advisor to get the data together. Nobody's even talked about that except us,
Yeah, and I think that's where it comes, that staging environment plus the agents and everything comes in handy because I'd rather have that advice. You're going to have such limited time. It's already so stressful for the advisor doing transitions specifically, right? You're going to have such limited time and attention of theirs to just come in. You can't ask them go through the spreadsheet, manually correct stuff, do all the what they are okay with, I feel like, is if I take 90% of what they're providing and then I come in and I say, "Hey, this 10 needs your information that you can provide color on, or You don't have it and the client needs to, here's an easy way to send this information out to gather that data, come back and populate it. So now they're like, all right, well, this is my workspace that I can do this in. I'm okay doing this work. But if you give them 100% of that Excel and say, your columns seem off. This data looks like it was a city, but it's put into, country, et cetera. And then they're like, all right, now I got to be an Excel whiz, but that's what it comes down to. That's why
Oh, that
I
guy's not a
think,
client anymore. What do you
yeah, yeah. Why am I even bothering with this now? Right.
Yeah,
Like, so there's so much of that. And then I think one of the things when we talk about staging environment, control panel, launchpad, like all these things is they want to see progress happen, right? They don't want to just drop something and it's like, I'm just doing all this stuff and I don't know what happened with that account. Did it even get approved? Did it go through? Is it over there? I'm not sure. That's where you can provide that high level like reporting to them and be like, outstanding 1,000 accounts, 9,000 of them moved. There's 100 that are pending your input or are waiting for the client to come back with some information. Here's the status of where everything is. Majority's moved over. So like that type of stuff creates that security. It creates the benefit not only from us from a technology standpoint of providing this, but also the home office, the broker dealer that's taking them through this journey. They trusted this broker dealer to get them through it. And these little things are going to matter so much. And I think in the age of agentic, with everything that they're used to, with the expectation of the outside world coming in with new tech, with the loads of money that's spent behind it, these are the types of things that people are going to be waiting for to see, and it's going to create really good rapport. So,
right. And I love how you talk about that. You're just gonna have to trust it. You're just gonna have to trust that it's happening. Because even I, as I stepped into this world after having done it for the agentic world, I've been in the wealth management world for 20 years, but just trusting like, oh, okay, yeah, transitions can be this simple because I have an engineering team in like everybody that on our team that is better than me at
yeah,
thinking about ways that we can do this. So
yeah.
I'm like, oh, well, we should have a UI for this part. They're like, why? There we go.
Why?
There we go.
You should only have a
And you're
UI
right.
for the stuff that's wrong that you need to see, and it's
Yeah,
like, and then
exactly. Yeah, but
it's,
you're used to like just guys like my dad. Like, I just want to see it. It's like forget about it. No, you don't, man. You're just
well,
used to seeing it, man.
yeah,
You want to be finished, right?
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Now you're
What's
done.
more important, seeing something that's not done, or just having it be done, and then you can just the status is completed already, and you don't have to go back in ever again to look at it.
IGO, man.
Well,
In good order. Yeah.
yeah, everything is in IGO. You're
Yeah.
fine. So
Yeah. It's just gonna have
that's what the
one
world is.
API in my kitchen. It's just gonna say IGO above the fridge, but boom, everything's in good order. That's all I need to know.
Yeah. No, I think that's how I look, and I get it. A lot of times, like, and I came from the Adapar world, right? Which so much of it when Adapar came into like the family office space and the RAs and all this stuff, they were like, "Hey, we're gonna get you out of an Excel spreadsheet." You know what they did? They built a really nice looking Excel spreadsheet in
Yeah.
their UI in the analysis page. It has headers, it has columns. You can do a pivot table, some
Whatever you
charts
want.
off of that.
It's
So
no.
like, yeah, they said, and then the best part of it, no shade on them, was whenever you wanted to import data in, they had a import data Excel add-in. So you needed the spreadsheet when you would do the implementation even and updating transactions and all this stuff had to go through Excel. So although their whole model was we're going to get people out of Excel and they're going to be using Adapar, they started driving them back to Excel because they realized that was the way that folks are used to seeing data, financial data. It's in Excel. They have their add-in now kind of integrated into the system so you could drop in a CSV or a spreadsheet in their system directly. But you still have to be working in Excel, saving it, and then coming in and doing it there. But the reason is because when they initially started building it, their client said, "This is how I want to see the data. I have my data in Excel. This is how I want to see the data. Can I just change this column? Can I just do this? Why can't I just build this?"
I need it to be on the internet.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, it really came from like I'm already used to using this, so like it slowly drove like why can't I see it in columns and things like that? And rows. That's how I'm used to seeing data. If I want to drill into it, can I collapse these? Can I do that? So a lot of it became recreating it. And so when time came for reporting, guess what system that reporting looked like? PowerPoint. So you would go in and say, I want to start a report, and it was a blank page. And then you had a chart you could drop and a table you could drop, and then, some summary that you could drop. And so you start building like PowerPoint templates.
Yeah, your
So
report pack. That's right. Yeah.
yeah, your report package was made of PowerPoint template like blocks in Adapar.
Yeah. Well, it's tough to get away from when you're trying to deliver an account view to advisors. They're just so damn hooked on Excel.
Yeah.
Oh, can't it
Well,
just
but
adds
but
up
but
the
I'll say this.
total, the owner,
I'll say this, there's a smart way of doing it, right? And I think that's what we're talking about here. Like, we're going to
Oh,
get
I
to
know.
reporting at
Yeah.
some point, but the smart way of doing it is this. I have a reporting package that all my clients use and I generate it quarterly. Scheduling was a pretty recent thing that Adapar even came out on the reporting side. You couldn't even schedule stuff to come out as you had to do it manually. You go like run it. But if I made a PowerPoint or an Adapar report that looked like a PowerPoint, and in there I had asset classes. And then I'm going to break out all of these asset classes by, hey, equities report, like a sub report, private equity, venture, directs, whatever it is. Guess what happened if one of the clients didn't have something in private equity?
Zeros.
They just got a bunch of tables with blank assets. And Adapar created this logic around split attributes. So you could actually create one report and say, split it by these attributes, and then it would do that. So you would solve for the sub stuff. But that came later, and people had reports that didn't really comply to that. So they had to go and recreate a bunch of them, et cetera. Now they've like tried to move certain things over, but long-winded way of saying, and I don't fault them a lot just because they were building at a different time, but leverage the tech where you can. So like right now, if we were to do reporting, you would have the capability to say, hey, I want these uniform reports and I don't want to ever look at them again, because if private equity isn't held, that shouldn't be a section that ever goes out. They should not have a subsection of private equity if they don't have private equity at all. And I don't want to create 50 different versions where I'm going to group my private equity holders with their report that includes that section and the ones that don't, because what if then tomorrow Bob buys into some private equity deals and I got to move him then. And then I'm going to lose so it's
It needs
like,
to be dynamic. That's just too static.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's where a lot of the benefits of this future state can come in from. Where I might not give you the PowerPoint format of you going in and adding stuff and doing this. Why don't you trust the agent that's going to give you all the things you want, but you're just going to say, give me the report across all my clients that include their asset classes, the transactions, their family net worth, go. And it boom, 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 puts it together. You're trusting Claude and Cowork and all these things to do that. Why wouldn't
Yeah.
you there?
Right.
So anyway, I think that's the world we're heading in. And I'm making that call. It's a little more dynamic. It's a little more, I'm being a little more direct, just given what we're seeing. But I think that's where we're heading. And I'm really excited
Right.
about it.
I know that's where we're heading. I think we
Yeah.
continue to see our ideas validated. While it's important to stay humble, and we are, I am confident that we're on the tip of the spear. Most of the news out there is BS because I'm on these projects and so are you, and we would know if they're happening all over the place. So even if companies are operating in stealth, these custodians can't be. So if you're pushing the tip of the spear because again, we're all working through it together,
Yeah.
for the first time. So I love it, man. Can't believe we made the 20th impossible episode happen.
I know.
So
I look, we were so focused on getting 10 out when we first started that now
right.
we're at 20, which is wild. And
20,
we
10,
always,
10,
yeah, exactly. 10-10 is a
Yeah.
big number. We
Yeah.
like it. But yeah, I mean, one of those things I think with the podcast is we've been so focused with everything we've been doing on the Arca side that we want to deliver quality here as well. So we want to be able to provide good content regardless. So aside from just doing stuff at a certain cadence, we want to make sure we're giving you guys a lot of the intel that we're seeing, and then we're hoping from here we can open up some conversations, both
Right.
checking in. If you guys want to bug George, just hit him up with that 225 and ask him when he's going to do it so he can feel some
It's
pressure.
a problem. Yeah.
Hopefully hopefully you've done it by the time this episode is out so you can repost it
Yeah,
and
I think
say,
I'm close. I think
all
I'm
right,
close.
good. But also if there's anything we're saying, like whether it's transitions, whether it's the agentic stuff, orchestration, anything you're coming across that you're really like, I wonder what these guys are doing. I mean, we always welcome the conversation. We love to have that type of conversation. We love to peel back the onion and look at it together.
And I
'Cause
think if we're going to come on a podcast and have a podcast, we are so passionate about it because you and I talk about the news we see on LinkedIn and all that, and we say BS half the time because we know how hard it is. You can't just deploy things. You can't just say stuff.
yeah,
You know, you've got to do it. And I know if you're really doing it, you know,
everyone's releasing the first ever, right?
yeah, everybody is releasing the wealth managements. Yeah. But, it's important to know who's executing, that it's real. I'm happy to prove it all day long, you know, and join you in the transitions argument up on stage if anybody wants.
Yeah.
I keep saying every once in a while, we should just have like a practice management tech,
Debate.
B.
Yeah,
We
yeah, yeah,
debate
yeah.
even better, yeah. And
Yeah,
then
I
they'll
think
like
so.
an audience of advisors who can applaud, the right answers, and that's how we'll have a winner and maybe a little weightlifting session. We'll keep it short, but it
Yeah.
won't be crazy. We'll have a
I'll get everyone into the Equinox. We'll weight lift after, blow some
yeah.
steam off after the debate.
We
But
won't say which equinox. Could be anywhere. There's a couple that it'll be Arca Conference 1. I can't wait
yeah,
for it. So
exactly. I'm happy that you guys joined us for episode 20, the impossible episode, now that it's out into the world. George, like I said, it's always a pleasure to have you on here, the intel. I think for the next one, we'll have to get
likewise.
a guest just to maintain our alternating YouTube screen where we have a guest in one and then it's us and then another. So
Yeah, yeah.
20th
To
is,
the AI podcast for advisors where we were last. Thank you. That was great. So those
yeah,
guys
it was
did a
awesome.
on that one. So appreciate that. And yeah, we're gonna have
James
to
and
have
Mark always do a good job. So
yeah, we're gonna have to have a guest on for the next. We'll have to think of somebody good. So
maybe we can get Omani on.
they that I've tried, man. Omani, if you're watching this one, come on, man.
Yeah,
I've got some
come
good
on.
questions for you. I mean, the whole community would benefit from your insights. So, spread the love, brother.
Let's do it. All right. Well, we'll see you on the next one. It was a pleasure to have you all here.
Thank you, everyone.